Yes, it was Jaja's plan to put in every man the qualities that will ensure success. And if you believe anything you will achieve, you will reach your full potential, be your very best. Regardless the way you come from, once you have the ambition, the sky is the limit. Once you ain't quit, you can be anything you want to be. Just stay away from negativity. Pursue the goals you set tenaciously. Don't let failure define your destiny. Know that believing in yourself increases the possibility and makes it easier to be what you want to be.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentians that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
Hills, mountains, aye, man, woman, jai, proud, Vincy, hands up high, and let me hear you say,
This island is mine.
jump and say, jump and say, jump and say.
IKTV, Channel 112. It's all about you.
Congratulations must be in order for the people movement in high order, for the battle and come a long, long way.
A pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today for the 2024 edition of the Dynamite Calypso 10th of New York panel discussion on Calypso and Soca, yesteryear, today, and the future. The Dynamite Calypso 10th of New York is dedicated to the promotion of Vincentian culture. Established in 2001, we are the only Vincentian Calypso tent outside the homeland of St. Vincent and Grenadines. The Calypso tent is the forum of the people and the only place where all can come together across boundaries, cliques, and parties. Dynamite Calypso 10 brings together diverse voices around issues critical to our culture to tackle problems and hopefully drive progress. We promote our culture, advance social awareness, and strive to defend progress already made. Through our discussions, we build communities of support and nurture initiatives that advance the dignity and well-being of artists and the art form. This is why the Calypso tent exists, to promote Vincy culture and foster togetherness through education, inspiration, information, and of course, entertainment. Thank you again for joining us tonight. In all things, we must give thanks. The invocation for the blessings and guidance of the Almighty is rendered by Miss Francesca Sam of Yesteryear Productions, Inc.
Heavenly Father, we come before you today to give you honor and praise. You alone are worthy of our praise, dear God. You alone are the source of all that is good. As your word tells us, every good and perfect gift comes from you. You are the source of all of our blessings. Thank you, God, for every gift that we've been given. We come to you today in recognition of our responsibility to the past, the present, and the future, asking for your guidance, dear God, your wisdom and support as we conduct this event. We gather together today, intent on doing good work to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well. Help us, O God, to engage in meaningful discussions. Fill us with your grace, Lord Jesus, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of culture, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Homage must also be paid to our homeland. Here is the national anthem of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
St. Vincent land so beautiful, with joyful hearts we pledge to thee our loyalty and love, and vow to keep you ever free. Whatever future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true. Irene, now fair and blessed Isle, your mountains high, so clear and green, are home to me. Though I may stray, a haven calm serene. Whatever future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true. Our little sister islands are those gems, the lovely grenadines upon their seas, and golden sands the sunshine ever beams. Whatever future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true.
Our moderator tonight is Mistress Marvel O'Brien Morgan, a graduate of the University of the West Indies, a musician and a teacher, Vice President of the St. Vincent and Grenadines Association of Music Professionals, SVG AMP, a position she has held since 2016, a member of the Lions Club, Kingston St. Vincent, co-founder of the Foundation School of Music, president of Miss Auto Sports SVG, an organization that is centered around the development of the youth in the area of pageantry to help them work on themselves holistically. An entrepreneur, she is owner of Trails Song System. It is my pleasure to hand you over to our moderator tonight, Mistress Marvel O'Brien Morgan.
Thank you very much, Peter. I just want to say a pleasant good afternoon to everyone who is listening to us in the diaspora, whether you're hearing the sound of my voice. And welcome you to this panel discussion. It's Dynamite's second panel discussion. What a very great initiative this tent has been taken. Dynamite's Calypso Tent of New York now changed their name to Dynamite's Cultural Organization because of the work that they have been doing in the community. And if you are a follower of the Dynamite's Calypso Tent, you would see tremendous work that they have been doing within the community, especially in our Carnival art form last year. We saw them donated the trophies for the Junior Calypso and the Soca Mona competition in Civis and the Grenadines. And they have also assisted greatly in other areas. As we go along, you will learn a little bit more about the Dynamite's Calypso Tent. But for tonight, this afternoon, we're going to be talking about Yesteryear, Calypso, and Soca, yesteryear, today, and the future. The causes, purpose, evolution, acceptance, achievements, artist compensation, and royalties, in addition to the next generation perspective. And we have a great panel lined up for you this afternoon. Everybody's hearing me now?
Yes, now I am.
Now I'm hearing you.
My mic was on. Yeah,
I missed.
You had to backtrack.
You missed it, so we're going to backtrack.
The last 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that lovely introduction. So the Dynamite's Calypso Tent of New York City. The Dynamite's Calypso Tent, now known as the Dynamite's Cultural Organization. And cultural organization because of the tremendous work that they have been doing. I remember last year in the Carnival season, they were the sponsors of the trophies for the Junior Calypso and Soca Moda competitions in Civis and the Grenadines, and we look forward to that sponsorship for this year. They have done annual Christmas programs, host bingos, barbecue, backyard summer concerts, and many other activities for the sole purpose of helping other persons who are in need. So Dynamite's Calypso Tent, I hope you continue with the good work with your founding members, and I want to take this opportunity to remember one of your members who has passed, which is Mr. Groovy D, very great Calypsonian and list. So we're going to talk about Calypso and Soca. I know a lot of people are very much gearing up to listen to the yesteryear, today, and future. Causes, purpose, evolution, acceptance, and achievements, the artist compensation and royalties, in addition to the next generation perspective. All these are trending topics that have been popping up lately in this industry. We have a great panel of people lined up for you, and I want you to listen attentively as we listen to the music, the bass of Calypso and for Soca. We're going to jump right into it. I want to introduce to you this afternoon Mr. Stephen Huggins, a lawyer, co-founder of the Upstage Experience, assistant manager of the Onto Calypso tent, co-founder of the online radio station Sweet Radio SVG, host of the popular radio program Calypso College. And Mr. Huggins will speak to you on the causes, purpose, and evolution of Calypso. We're going to have the panelists talking, and then after we have all of the panelists making their presentation, we'll take some questions and answers from the public. So Mr. Stephen Huggins, speak to us on the causes, purpose, and evolution of Calypso Soca.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marva. Thank you very much to the Dynamite's cultural organization for inviting me here this evening. I'm a little caught off guard because I understand that we have 3 minutes, and I had actually prepared something which I think was much longer. So I'm going to have to praise you a bit. Calypso. If we are going to talk about the causes and purpose of Calypso, we have to first know what Calypso is and where it came from. I think everyone around would know that the Caribbean in general is evolving out of what we know as a slave society. Our forefathers were once, most of us, African slaves that were brought here and found themselves working on plantations in the Caribbean. Life, of course, wasn't easy. And so they developed, well, first of all, they brought their culture with them. And one of the things involved in culture is music. And these African slaves brought their music with them. It was known as Cariso, and it evolved. And this is what we are going to be discussing, but I can't take too long on it. It evolved because, of course, with time, changes took place. When they were on plantation, slaves found it necessary to, first of all, build their spirits, to sort of fight against the oppression that they were experiencing. They wanted to, the camaraderie, they getting together to tell tales. They couldn't read English or write English, so they had to basically express themselves in song. And that is what happened. Now, we all know that we hear Calypso is something which is based in satire. And sometimes we wonder, well, what do they mean by that? Well, it was the slaves' way of expressing their distaste for the master and the missus of the house, the whites who were their enslavers. So to get messages across, to ridicule their master without the master knowing, the slaves had to find ways to express themselves, and that Calypso was one of those. One of the earliest persons who I understand he is reputed to be the very first Calypsonian was a man called Grosjean, and he came from one of the French islands. I think it was Guadeloupe or Martinique, and he came to Trinidad and was recognized as being a good chantuelle. A chantuelle in those days was also referred to as a griot, and they were the ones who were instructed by their master to sing for the audiences around. And as I said, Grosjean started it, or is recognized as one of the first. And I also want to touch a little bit on the whole question of Trinidad being the home or the originator of Calypso. Many people talk about whether or not that is so. I have been reading a little bit about it, and Attila the Hun, Raymond Quevedo, is a person who is a Trinidadian. And he wrote in a book that he published, or was published after he died, that is a myth that should be dispelled, because African slaves were all over the Caribbean. They were in the British Virgin Islands, they were in Antigua, St. Kitts, wherever. And they developed their own methods as well and involved themselves in Calypso singing or Calypso singing. The Calypso term came after. and it was originally known as Carrizo. So to get back to the causes, we know therefore that they wanted to express themselves, they wanted to say things and deliver messages, and so that is how Calypso, it is said, began. Came originally in the form of African traditional griots or chantwells, but was heavily influenced by the European colonizers in terms of the lyrics and structure. So that what we had was French and primarily English influences on the Calypso. And now the Calypso started as very simple melodic and lyrical compositions, mostly 4 lines and the chorus. I'm running out of time, I could see that. But as I said, very simple, but evolved to the point where we now have presentations which are very complex, and most of the times being 8-line double tone calypsos. And by double tone, I mean the 8-line verses or stanzas. The single tone was approximately 4 lines, and as I said, a very simple chorus. And we have lost that type of calypso over the years. And one of the notable incidents recently was Machel Montano returning to win a competition in Trinidad, singing basically one song, and returning in a way to that very simple type calypso. If you observe what has been happening in recent years, the calypsos have become more complex structurally and more long-winded. The calypsos now are like that, but back then they were very simple. Purpose, as I said, there was a purpose then, and there continue to be purposes which evolved with time. A lot of it became political. In a sense, the slaves were being political when they were singing against Massa without Massa actually knowing that they were singing. And when they knew they were singing, but they didn't know what they were singing about. Most times, that is the essence of calypso. It is delivering a message, but people basically have to work out who or what you're singing about without you calling the names and getting yourself afoul of the law, because we know that there are libel laws and defamatory laws and stuff like that. So we always have to be careful when persons are writing calypso or judging calypso. Purposes, as I said, keeping a community spirit, telling messages, conveying messages, delivering political messages, building, as I said, a community of people knowing who or what the community is about, what the culture is about, taking for example, your country past the boundaries of its geographical limits and taking your country out there. We have seen where calypso, through the ambassadorship of people like Sparrow and Arrow, and I said calypso, but calypso and soca, because I'm just as Machel said, they're one. We have situations where people like Beckett, they're cultural ambassadors and they're recognized as such. But even before the official recognition, they've been taking all these, I should say, their actual countries on their backs and taking them to parts of the world that we don't even hear about. Sparrow has sung in places like Japan and Nigeria, and so too people like Kevin Little. I was looking at a movie from one of the African countries, and there was Turn Me On being played as a part of the soundtrack. And so The Deep is another movie, and I can tell you of several movies. I don't want to go into that now because I'm running out of time, but there are so many instances of taking your country forward right? And I touched along with all of this on the whole evolution, the movement of Calypso from the days of the plantation right up to where it is presently, a completely different thing. I want to end by just showing people what I'm trying to say. The Lord Kitchener has passed away, but Lord Kitchener and Roaring Lion are two people who continued to sing Calypso from very early in the 1930s, I think, right up to the 1990s. And if you listen to Kitchener from way back in the 30s, 40s, when he started to sing, you'd realize that his music of that time sounds nothing like the last set of music that Kitchener did. And that is to show you the evolution of the music and what it has come to. Later on, I'm sure we'll touch on things like that as we go along.
All right, thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much, Stephen. We will come back to it, because after we finish having all of the panelists doing their presentations, we'll take some questions and answers, and I'm sure at some point we will all of that will come back out. We were just having a little technical glitch there. So before I move on to the second panelist, I just want to take you back so we could get a short introduction from the leader of the tent, Mr. Carlos Rejecter Providence.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning. To every one of you viewing and listening to this program, I am Carlos Rejecter Providence. On behalf of the Dynamite Cultural Organization, I hereby extend a very warm welcome to you for this, the second edition in our series of panel discussions on the topic Calypso and Soca, Yesteryear, Today, and the Future. Of course, this is in collaboration with IKTV and Boom 106.9 FM SVG, AI Real Estate, Standard Shippers, Friends of Sion Hill, Love Bay Afrobeat Radio of Montreal, Canada, Standard Caribbean Shipping, Mr. Silford Warren, Taxes and Accounting Consultant, and of course, Vinci Internet Radio of Ottawa, Canada. Today, we have a very distinguished team of panelists who are all very accomplished in their respective fields. Our moderator would later introduce them to you individually. So, it is our expectation that after all is said and done today, that all who would have participated would be much more informed and would have greater appreciation for the Calypso and Soca art form and for the Calypso and Soca artists. Also, that this would reflect in greater numbers turning out to the Calypso tents and to the Calypso and Soca Monarch shows. Also, it is our expectation that the corporate sector after this would see the need to better assist and would recognize the huge benefits that can be derived on both sides once they do so. So once again, I am Carlos Rejecter Providence, President of the Dynamite Cultural Organization, welcoming you. Enjoy.
Will you hear me?
We'll probably have to take. We're going to move on to our second panelist, Mr. Carlos Fasano John. We're hearing you, Mr. Vanna.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen from around the world, wherever you're joining us from, and to the panelists, I'm happy to be a part of. We're here to the topic I'm going to touch since I'm a new member for 3 years of the Dynamite Calypso tent, a new artist. This is my perspective and my experience. I'm going to talk about preparation of an artist and targeting the market and the algorithm changes that has been made, and you got to make changes. So I go from, first of all, let's start with a dream, a vision, an idea, a fantasy, or experience, which goes on to under documentation is the first thing I gotta talk about. When writing something, idea come to you as an artist, you must put pen to paper. So that's documentation. so that you can go back. It may not sound the way you want it to sound. It might not be perfect. So you can go back and revise it, and you can upgrade it to a better materials. And now as an artist, you gotta choose what is calypso, what genre you want to be in, what you want to be as an artist, what kind of an artist. It's because if you go to calypso, it will fall under the same genre as folk song, which was begin in West Africa, where they use drums and to replace speaking, to communicate with politics, ritual, and so on. Now you are a public figure, so this is a big deal. This will make you or break you. So whatever you do in public, you gotta be positive, and the company you carry in, everything will reflect on who you are as an artist. So keep that in mind. Writing and composition. You gotta be aware of they say calypso is slackness all the time, but it doesn't have to be slackness. You could improvise the words that you're using. Be careful of the words you're using in your calypso, because you might be catering to kids under age, the next gen. They will be listening even though you didn't send the music out to them directly. Now, how you carry yourself, your performance. You gotta know how to move the crowd and to be appealing to the crowd, to your fans. As otherwise, they'll just suck the teeth and they're not interested to you about you. Now we'll talk about style. Never copy somebody's style. Always make sure you have your own style. You know what I mean? Be consistent. Always improving. Uplifting. It could be anything. It could be just a move. You don't have to do a lot of dancing or anything. It could be a signature move, something you say, a proper something that will stand out, and that will brand you who you are. And that is your brand that you're presenting to the world, you want to sell. And now you got to figure out where the songs changes, evolve. You can go back to yesteryear and follow the old artist ways, because everybody seemed to jump on one rhythm with high drum beating, with no symphony and no rhythms. So you gotta change the way that calypso is being made. Yeah, always register your songs, even though you did not release it yet, so that you don't want to copyright somebody. Because if you write a song and somebody already have the headline or something in that song, you might not get the song released, or you not get right to the song. So you want to make sure that you get the rights to your song, so you can collect your revenue. Basically, the next gen, they say you that changes. I like to see different algorithm. They still have to go back and use samples. So when you sampling, it's very hard to be original. So being original, it's a big deal. Now somebody have to pay you for your originality when creating music. So when you register your song to the social media, there's so many things that you gotta go through, which fall under targeting. What age group are you targeting the market? Now, Calypso, you can't target kids under 18, as otherwise the Spotify or Apple, they're not gonna accept your music. So you got to be aware of that. When you releasing a song, your album cover and your singles that you're uploading, they have to correspond, right? So make note of that. Any upcoming artist who's getting into the field, if your song is Spread Love and your song and your album, one of your singles is Jump It Up, Spread Love gotta come on top and jumping up in the bottom section, and then make sure you have your URL number and all your numbers in place before you releases your songs, because you basically most likely you're gonna need a laptop, because you're gonna have problem with your phones, because you got to go back and forth. Basically, I think I cover what I have to say, because I don't want to go into what other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pisano. Remember, after our panelists have spoken, we will move into some questions and answers. So if you missed anything, you can always backtrack to there. Our next panelist, SVG's first Independence Calypso Monarch, former road march champion, 3 times National Calypso Monarch, musician, arranger, songwriter, costume designer, producer, and owner of Digital Music Productions. And I'm going to invite him to speak to you on studio time and music distribution. Mr. Kenneth Vibrating Skakes Aline. And remember, panelists, you have 6 minutes.
Please unmute your mic.
We are talking about studio time, and fortunately, I'm in a studio right now. But I've been through lots of studios: New York, Barbados, Trinidad, you name it. And studio time could be very costly. One thing I've noticed at studio time, it can give you a good product or a bad product. And in the case of St. Vincent, many of the bands of the 70s and 80s, they have to be taking a plane ticket again to run back to Barbados to correct the mix, or to correct the mix in Trinidad, in the case of some of the bands here. But studio time is very valuable in terms of what we had in like in New York, you're paying in US, and after a certain hour they put on $10 more. So you know you're trying to get out of the studio. It made a difference between what quality product you leave the studio with. And when you come out of that studio with your production, okay, it was different. There were certain things missing. You carry to Jamaican record shop, they say, where's the heights? Or where's the bass? They ask you for something. Then you realize you ain't spending enough money. But studio time, I must say, is taken for granted by a lot of people, especially in St. Vincent. Some people think when they pay you a $500 or $700, that is the cost of production and everything finished there. Basically, what a lot of studios do around here with the small investments, what they do, they try to assist artists to get their work out there, hoping that it will make big and then the studio could get something good for the work that they're doing. But some artists take the studio for granted and they think, well, I don't pay here already. Well, to be paying, let's talk about 1983. I left St. Vincent to go to New York to record. It cost me $9,500 to get up there and record in a professional studio. And just advance that figure to know, you'll see how much it costs to do a recording. And it's the equipment that become more sophisticated. When we talk about studio time, I know I left the studio with material and couldn't go back because there was not enough finance to go back there. So one thing I want artists in St. Vincent to consider, when you're recording, you may make a beats or a demo somewhere, but professional recording and good quality calls for real dedication and studio time. And we talk about collaborations. We talk about collaboration between the artist A and artist B, but we talk about collaboration between studio and artists. I think that's what happened when the guy in Canada recorded the song "Who Let the Dogs Out." When the big cash came in, the studio was able to get something from what happening with "Who Let the Dogs Out." And in our case, in 2001, when we had "Turn Me On," Adrian Studio did it for a few dollars, a few $100s. But when it hit the markets internationally, Adrian was able to get something more for the work he has done. And so sometimes, and especially when you have a studio owner who is a musician. Now, in our case, we are musicians, and a guy could come just with a song, with just words, and get something done that is high standard. And sometimes you get it for a little cost. When you start factoring in the musicianship, the creativity to make the introduction and give you some beautiful musical lines in there, it costs money eventually. So one must not think that, oh, I have $500, I pay him already. It don't work like that. It's an investment. The studio cost, if you have to pay for the studio, you can't get in there. So always appreciate the owners that will allow you the latitude to get something done properly for your song and your production that you need. One distribution. I was down in my basement now a couple days ago, looking through some old documents and so on, and came up on some boxes and saw cassettes. Those days were cassettes from 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Some were sold, and with what wasn't sold is in the basement. I'm saying this to say that if you don't have a distribution network in place, you'll have a lot of problems distributing your music. Now, a lot of people talk about getting music online now. How beneficial is that to the individual artist? Depends on who is the marketing agency. because the marketing agency will determine what you get in return for your product. Okay. When the song Kevin got out of here, I don't think it's the records that give him the sale of records, but the popularity and the amount of shows he was able to cover. And people get to know you and they want to see you. So they send for you all over the world, and it does well. But now there's a factor that you might slip up on in terms of the actual material getting into a big company that has distribution network. Companies like Sony, um, you name it, right? Atlantic Records and all these. They have the capital and the network in place already. So if it's breaking big like in Europe, because Kevin Song leaves St. Vincent, went to New York, went back to Trinidad, and Trinidad Carnival, because of their large diaspora, put it out there. It went international, and then America heard about it, and America, they pick it up in a big way because the Americans always want to know what the Europeans are dancing to or clamoring about. So you have a situation where, in terms of distribution, right? It's always good to get, number one, get your copyright in place. Because the copyright, the ownership of the work is important. And sometimes ownership has not simple because you write the song, but who put the music to it, and somebody buy into it in terms of the production, like Straker took my first set of recordings, recorded them, and so he bought into it. He paid for the studio, paid for this, paid for that. So he has a vested interest in getting the production going and looking at the returns. In those early days, we didn't have a good way of monitoring what's going on because they had their own network set up. So what was happening beyond New York, we didn't know. What was happening in London and other places to your music. But it was within a West Indian diaspora framework. It was not like you could have seen what happened we didn't break into the international market per se in terms of the American picking it up, okay? Because you had just basically West Indian acceptance, Canada, England, and New York and Washington D.C. and the Trinidadians would spread it out for you. Once you can make a hit in Trinidad, they will spread it out to you. So your distribution could be wide, and you could get good returns. I noticed that there's a resurgence of CD production and record production. I guess the online thing has taken its toll on the artists, so they're going back to that form. And I think we got to be looking out in that direction in terms of distribution and marketing of our material at this point in time. I will stay there for now. Moderator?
Having a little issue with my mic. Thank you very much, Mr. Aline, on that enlightful presentation of studio preparation and distribution of music. As I said before, after the panelists have presented their topics, we will take some questions and answers from the public. I'm going to take a special opportunity to introduce my next panelist, as she's the lone female on the panelist besides myself, the moderator, this evening. She's a former member of the Girls Scout USA, a Dean's List graduate of John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Connie, an honorary society member, passionate about volunteerism, giving much of her time to the Cancer Society of America and similar organizations for the causes. She'll be presenting on the topic, Next Generation Perspective. I turn you over to Ms. Samantha Carr.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the Dynamite organization for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share my voice on the perspective of the youth through my eyes. First, I would like to say I listen to music every day, especially soca music. Soca music is very fun, uplifting, and happy. When making music, there is an artistic sort of science behind it. When creating music, you have to create a formula that composes six different categories. One, question. I wonder how to get the youth involved. Two, hypothesize. Do your research on your target audience. Three, experiment. You test your hypotheses. Four, you observe. You write down observations during the experiment. Five, analyze with that information. You draw conclusions and make adjustments when necessary. Six, share results. Explain what you found out. I am part of Dynamite's scientific formula. The younger generation definitely needs guidance, maybe a management team to guide them, which includes a PR who can pull them to the side and say, you can't do whatever, say whatever you want, and expect people to still want to work with you. And someone on the business side who can help them get the royalties because there's no reason why so many people are making money off of the artist from the promoter all the way down to the police officers, but the artist doesn't see a dime. You can join organizations that are already available for those same situations or create your own, or maybe even a big brother, big sister program with already established artists where they can teach stage presence, how to properly write lyrics, and so on. The older generation should not be so judgmental. Yes, our lyrics are more upfront, but you're also singing Small Pin by Beckett and Turn Me On by Kevin Little. In 2022, Skinny Fabulous and Problem Child, they created a song called Danger. And the opening line says, Jesus Christ, mother walk, look at people behavior. Just saying Jesus' name had some of the older people in an uproar, but sometimes they're the same people that call Jesus' name when they're annoyed and mad. That same year, the revelers they knocked down some barricades. The judges didn't like that at all, but they paused the show and they said no, they're gonna listen to me. They stopped the show. They said pull back up the barricades, and they listened. Trinidad Killer on February 9th, he said that the future of soca is becoming non-existent because the older heads they're stifling the younger generation, and he goes on to say it's the same 10 people that are being endorsed like Bungie Garlin, Nadia Baston, Marsha Montano, and asks how long are they going to reign for. In my opinion, yes, give other people a chance. Not saying completely tell the reigning people stop performing because they still make excellent music, but those people earned it and they still continue to make music that gets the people going. A lot of people still question why is Fireman still competing? Why is he still making songs? But why question that when he enjoys it and he's very good at it? I was singing his songs at a young age, not even knowing who I was singing. But yet they also wonder why Skinny Fabulous stopped doing Soca Monarch competitions in 2015. Natali, who placed fourth with the song Fence and Pole in Soca Monarch in 2016 in St. Vincent, and is now living in New York and is dominating soca events. He has NTP events where he hosted and he does parties. Some parties are based off of Mass, such as Rum and Mass. He teamed up with a Mass camp here last year, and they were on Eastern Parkway. He introduced a layaway plan for all of his events, and he uses social media to stay current with the trends, and that is something that the older generation, they're not savvy with. Everything is so serious all year long. Just for 1 week or 1 day, we need to take our mind off the politics, work, and personal problems and just let loose. I can appreciate the songs like Toonie by Icon, Who Jumped the Sheet by J.O., Sorefoot by Skinny, where they have double meanings, nice beats, and fun lyrics. Because of that, I can also appreciate The Hard Times by Carbon Jams, Family by Skinny Fabulous, Masha, and Bungie Garland, and This Island Is Mine by Skinny Fabulous. There is no one way to do anything. Things change all the time, and sometimes the older generation can be set in their ways, where they feel as though because they've been doing one thing for so long, that's the way how it should be done. But that's not how it should be. We would be stronger together. We're not against the older generation, but we may not always feel welcomed. That's my perspective.
Thank you very much, Samantha, for that enlightening presentation and giving us the views of the youths, basically. And I like how you're really, really versed. You seem to know a lot of the genre of music, especially the Vincentian soca. You say you listen to it a lot. I want to introduce you to our next panelist. A graduate of the Jamaican School of Music, he's an arranger, a musician, a mentor, teacher, producer, and the General Secretary of SVG AMP. Mr. Geoff Venner will present to us the history of Calypso and the music contents. Geoff Venner.
Okay, all online and also to all of you in the studio. Seeing that some of the persons have touched on the history, I will go straight into certain things about the music content, instrumentation, musical structure, development in technology, and so on. Now, in the early years, the instruments were limited to acoustic guitar, shak, which is the maracas, also cuatro, 4-string guitar like Venezuelan type instrument, and the tambu bamboo, which is a length of bamboo, varied lengths of bamboo, which were used to give a type of bass sound. That was in the early years, in the early 20th century. Then in the 30s, the 50s, and so on, there was the use of the double bass, the trap set, electric guitar, piano, clarinet, particularly trumpet, and saxophone and trombone. Those were used in that time. Then later on, the electric bass was used in the 1960s, electric keyboard, electronic keyboard in the 60s, etc. And in the 1980s to early 21st century, developments in technology and instrumentation added to the development of the art form with the advent of recording studios. So in all music, there's likely to be changes over the years, usually over a 10-year period. There's an evolution of the music. It doesn't stay static. It happens in other musics as well. If you look at Jamaica, you had mento, which was close to calypso. Then you had ska. Then you had rocksteady and reggae, dub, dancehall. So there was a slowing down because ska was a up-tempo music. In Trinidad, calypso was almost like folk, as someone said before, and the instrumentation I put out there, the shak and things like that. We know those older ones know what that approach to the music. In Trinidad, it went the other way from calypso, being slower, and there were some fast calypsos, but then soca, which is a hybrid of calypso, came about in the 1970s, early 70s, from Ras Shorty I, right? And after that, the soca evolved again, because as generations moved on, younger people added to. People like Kitchener, who did Sugar Boom and so, that was movement towards the soca. And Sparrow also, who said at first he didn't want to do soca, ended up with some soca songs, right, as they went along. Now, in the 80s and so on, with changes in technology, and that has a lot to do with how the music is evolving, technology. You've gone into the computer age. It's not studios like in the early days where the band had to go into the studio and all had to play together. If one made a mistake, the entire band had to play again. Studios evolved to the point where you could take tracks separately. So if somebody made a mistake, the entire band didn't have to do it over again. Then that evolved to home studios with the computer technology and programs. So this is allowing more persons the opportunity to do a recording and so on, right? Unlike the early days where you had to pay a special studio which was equipped with sound effects and things like that to do your recording. And you had to go to a record plant to press your record. You don't press records again. You have thumb drives now, from CDs, cassettes to CDs to thumb drives, right? So the music is becoming more available to younger generation, and they are masters of the technology today. So you found that in the 80s here in St. Vincent and Trinidad and other islands, that the younger people moved into this form of recording and technology. So much so that you didn't have to have a band of an actual bass player, guitarist, a drummer, perhaps a drummer, keyboard player, and actual hornmen to do your song, record your song. All of this was found in the keyboard, right? It was less costly, obviously. And they tried over the years, obviously, to bring the level, the quality of the keyboard, brass, and other things like that up to close to original brass instruments song, right? People who were there before the technology came could tell the difference between keyboard songs and real instrument songs. The younger generation clearly came into the technology, so they would not be aware of the original song of an instrument as compared to a song produced by a computer. So songs were being made very quickly by young people and put on radio stations or CDs and thumb drives and circulated easily. Now, another thing is that we have the soca, which was very melodic in the early years, right? With lyrical content, it gradually lost the melodic development and harmonic progressions as well as lyrical content. They were very basic rhythm and a hook line. And if we want to get further in music, in St. Vincent particularly, there are one or two artists who are still doing the right thing melodically, harmonically, and so on. But a lot of the younger generation, the teenagers and so, are going overboard on just a drum pattern, a bass line, no harmonic development, no melodic development, and a catchy hook line. But these songs cannot stand up in the developed countries where people do music at schools, primary and secondary schools, and they know about introductions, chord progressions for verse, chord progressions for chorus, and bridges and things like that. I'm not saying that all young artists have to go through all of that because they don't know music. And the technology is such that you could put in anything in your computer as long as it sounds good. But a lot of them have good, what they call riffs. They create good riffs, but they need to vary somewhere in the song, have a little release. Because music is built on tension and release. What we are having is tension from beginning to end, right? Now, if you want to get your music out to the world, you have to be able to satisfy the listeners in other countries. We see things like Afrobeat coming out, Jamaicans had a dance hall, which is around the world, and so on, right? Well, a few of our soca artists, right, are able to do that. I'm not saying all. I know some good ones who I recently heard of who are doing arrangements for people in other islands like Grenada, St. Lucia, and so on. That's good for us. Marshall the other day complimented quite a few of our local artists, studio people, and writers, of course, for assisting him, and also the Trinidadian artists. So we have something here in St. Vincent that is good, but we need to nurture it. So people need to access training, right? Either learn an instrument, go to voice training, learn theory, and get certified. We need to have a school of music here in St. Vincent, be able to turn out more persons in the art form with a high standard. Young artists in Jamaica, I went to school, are going to the Jamaica School of Music, people like Chronics, for example, and they're doing well. Okay, so I come to an end here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Venno. Another enlightening presentation. We might have to have a part 3 of this to make it. I know that everybody is pressed because it's 6 minutes, but you've all been doing a good job so far. When we get into the questions and answer phase, you get to delve a little bit more into your presentation. A lawyer, a singer, manager, promoter, and for over 50 years, he has been involved in the entertainment industry. He has judged many calypso competitions and is a musician's rights advocate. I'm going to let Mr. Franklin Edwards present to you royalties and artist compensation, a topic I know is very dear to his heart.
Thank you, Marv. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Hello?
Go ahead, Maxie.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are hearing me.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hearing you.
Thanks for that introduction, Margot. The issue of royalties is somewhat broad. It has okay. The issue of royalties. Right? Okay, I think it is some internet issues. Anyhow, are you hearing me now, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Maxie.
hearing.
Hello?
Hearing.
Maxie, I think you're probably having a little technical difficulty on your end because now that you're speaking, we're not hearing.
Hello?
Go ahead now.
Are you guys hearing me?
We're hearing you now, but when you began to speak, we weren't hearing anything. So go ahead and try now.
Yes.
All right. The issue
Go
of
ahead.
royalties is somewhat broad. Okay. There are quite a few areas that comes under the issue of royalties. Royalties is basically the song. Yeah. Maybe you want to go to somebody and I'll come back at the end. Let me try and sort it out.
Okay, I'll take the next panelist and see if you could get things sorted in the meantime. Okay, folks, we'll go back to Mr. Edward
Hi,
shortly.
are you hearing me?
Yeah, hearing you. You want to try again? All right, well, it seems that Maxi is still having some technical problems, so I'm going to let the next panelist go and then...
Hello?
Maxi?
Yeah, I don't know if it's on my end.
Okay, you want to try now?
Yeah, hi. Okay. Are you guys hearing me now?
Hearing you now.
Okay. Sorry about that interruption, if you're hearing me. The issue of royalties is somewhat broad. It will take a lot of time for us to, delve into it. It encompasses many areas. Specifically, royalties are basically payments to songwriters, the owners of the song, not the singer necessarily. And royalties, for a little historical perspective, it like many things in our lives, it has to do with the crown, colonial rulers back in the days. It really reason that you had to pay royalty or monies to the royal crown for use of extraction from their properties. Going back to the early 1900s, the authors and writers in the days of theater, etc., were not very happy with how the theaters were using their writings, their score sheets, and their music, because it started out initially from print music, and it evolved into song recordings, etc., from the early times. And basically, what the royalty is a payment for the use of your intellectual property. It evolved from ASCAP in the early 1940s in the US to BMI to a bunch of other societies around the world. And all these societies have a reciprocal agreement that if you collect in one area and money from music paid for a particular society, that money is transferred to that society and vice versa. You get royalties to the use of your music mechanically, public performances, print music, sync music. It covers the original song recordings also, that's called the master rights, and the publishing rights, protecting the lyrics and the melodies of the song. In the Eastern Caribbean, our copyright society that is really empowered to collect royalties for us is called ECHO, Eastern Caribbean Copyright Organization. Each territory has their own. Trinidad has COT, Barbados has, I think it's COSCAP, Jamaica has JCAP. There are several societies, and as I said before, they all have a reciprocal agreement between themselves. The problem we have faced in St. Vincent is that even though the Copyright Act empowers one to collect royalties, from for the use of, of people's intellectual works, most who use that work, most users do not pay that fee. They do not pay the royalty. They do not get a license in essence, whereby the writers and the creators of music in particular, I will stick to music because there's certain other ways you can receive royalties for. But for this discussion, let's just do with music. We have certain times of the year where there are a lot of music, including a lot of local music is played, but royalties are not paid simply because the radio stations, most of them, do not pay or do not get a license to play music. The promoters, as we all know, there are 10 to 12 or 15 fêtes that happens during the carnival season. And I say carnival season because that's the time where we find most local music being played, in addition to maybe Christmas. And the fact that these music users are not paying license, it results in the entertainers not collecting the necessary royalties. That issue has to be addressed in several ways. The legislation has to be stronger. There has to be an enforcement mechanism that asks the users to pay. We recently saw a case in Dominica where there was a big event and someone went ahead and got an injunction to stop that event simply because they was not paying or they did not obtain a license to use music. But music is a property right. It has a value to the owners of the music. The writers, the producers, the composers has a value in that music and they should be rewarded. People should not use music for their own financial gain without some sort of compensation going to the writers and the creators of that music. And in these parts, we are still encountering that, even though this thing was in existence since the 1940s. So it's a serious issue that needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed, as I said, from certain entities, such as legislation. The police department has to get involved in terms of enforcement. When you put on an event, you have to get a license. And there is really no law out of nothing in writing that gives the powers to the police to stop that event, unless somebody goes to the court and file an injunction prior to that event. And when I say somebody, it could be an organization such as ECHO. Putting an injunction has happened in Dominica recently that stops the event because the promoters did not get a license to use music. On a personal level, I had a similar situation not too long ago where a Vincentian song was owned by a Vincentian producer, Adrian Bailey, was used in St. Kitts and Antigua by the Labour parties in both countries without permission. It became their team song. And most will know the song as Get Rid of Them. That song, it required a license to use it. They were told up front by ECHO representatives in that area that they needed to get a license. And they ignored that and went ahead and they did it anyhow. Unfortunately, there are certain parts of the copyright laws in those two jurisdictions, in Kitts and Antigua, that sort of gives them the right to use certain organizations to use your music without having to pay any real serious compensation. What they most likely will have to pay is the equivalent to what they would have paid for a license, right? So there's nothing like punitive damages where you will find in the US when there's a copyright infringement and the owner of the copyright sues and collects, in most cases, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. But in those two jurisdictions, those sections, including Section 78 and 79, sort of allow these organizations, these social groups, to use music without facing any serious repercussions. However, after I was brought into this case, I negotiated a settlement for that use without permission with the PM of Antigua. And I also then negotiated with the lawyers representing the government of St. Kitts. That case is still ongoing because even though they agreed in writing to pay, they have not. So that might be continued, litigation on that matter. So to just wrap up, as I said, the issue of royalties has a lot of sub-issues, sub-areas to cover, and we don't have the time to do it. But briefly, it is the issue of owners of songs, owners and writers of music collecting and being paid for the use of that music by others. And it's difficult. The copyright societies are the ones that are empowered to collect those royalties, those payments, those licensing, that payment. And it became necessary because individually, if there are several artists in one country, each artist cannot. It's physically impossible for that person to monitor the use of their music on all the various platforms, locally, internationally, etc. So the copyright societies were born for that particular purpose. When you sign on to that society, you basically sign a contract with them to monitor the use of your music across the world. And they're supposed to collect that license, take their administrative fee and do certain calculations. And your music is monitored every time it's played. There's a royalty payment to that song, but you're not get that payment in various jurisdictions at various times, but it's quarterly. And some people collect, when you think of the major countries and the major artists, such as the Jay-Z's and so forth, they get checks, sometimes in the hundreds of thousands, because they have so many popular songs being used across the globe by so many radio stations, and most of the US radio stations pay license. So in turn, Jay-Z will collect checks for hundreds of thousands. Some people live off of royalties, but unfortunately for us in the Caribbean, we are still light years behind in that whole thing. And it's an ongoing discussion that we have to really think seriously about it, because the soca artists in particular, there's very little ways for them to make money from music in these parts. I'll stop there because there's so much to go into, but we don't have the time. Margot?
Thanks so much, Maxi, for another enlightening presentation. I know a lot of persons are always glad to hear about royalties and compensation, how they can be compensated for their music. We have one more presenter on our panelists, and then we'll dive right into some questions and answers. A father, husband, musician, arranger, composer, teacher, calypsonian, member of the Dynamite Calypso 10th of New York, and a member, and always will be a member of the National Youth Band, Mr. Ulrich Hamlet, to present legislation for the future of music.
Thank you, Miss Moderator. I hope everyone is hearing me, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm going to make a case for music legislation in SVG. It is the responsibility of every government to put in place a plan that would foster the development of its nation. Infrastructures must be maintained, the healthcare system must be managed appropriately, education must be improved, and the natural and human resources must be harnessed wisely. All these elements I have mentioned as responsibilities of any government are somewhat tied together. However, throughout my lifetime, I've noticed that little or no attention is paid towards our human resources as it relates to the performing arts and to the music industry in SVG. As a result, SVG has one of the biggest festivals in the Caribbean region in Vincy Carnival, of which Calypso, Mass, and Pan are the main components. Yet, from year to year, it's the same struggle and complaints. Most of the creators of Carnival are underpaid or not paid at all. But everyone else, the hotel, the restaurants, vendors, private businesses, they benefit. Each year, the House of Parliament includes some aspect of education, healthcare, infrastructure development as part of the annual budget. However, very little, if any, is put in place for the creative resources of SVG. I am very much fearful that if legislations are not put in place to make our performing arts relevant, not only would our biggest festival die, but our creative resources will move elsewhere to a more supportive environment. It is obvious that our government is aware of the importance of our creative arts, as seen in how many of our artists are ambassadors and even general counsel. But how does that develop performing arts in SVG? What are those ambassadors doing that would ensure the future of the performing arts has a career pathway? CDC, which has governed Carnival over the years, has provided minor financial incentive to the Calypso tents in SVG at the beginning of Carnival each year. But looking at the results over the years, it is safe to say that that process is not a successful one. Calypsonians are still not being paid for their creation, and whenever music is played on the radio, it is a gift to the radio stations. To change that trajectory of the performing arts, the government and people of SVG must change the way things are done. Just as how there are legislation in place that governs education and health, there must be legislation for the performing arts. Legislation that would govern how much of the national budget goes into music, base salaries for music performances, seed money from CDC, arrangers compensation, engineer salary, production and management crew, copyright benefit, SVG Amp's role, the role of Calypso Tent, and the artist groups. The artists and all who are involved must, however, take a more proactive role in making this happen. They must begin to document the issues they face and possible ways these issues can be resolved. Be ready to meet with the ministers of tourism and culture to formulate governing rules of the art form. If legislations are created and an annual budget is put in place, then the performing arts creators must be creative and find ways of multiplying that seed money throughout the year. Legislation alone will not solve our current issues. However, it should provide a roadmap towards a performing arts career. Legislation should begin with us. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Hamlet. So we have come to the end of our formal panel, where our panelists have presented to us tonight. They said the last shall be first. I'm going to start with Mr. Hamlet, who spoke to us on legislation for the future. We had Mr. Maxie Edwards, who spoke on royalties and artist compensation. Mr. Geoff Venner, music content, history of Calypso. Mr. Mantakar, the next gen perspective. Mr. Vibrating Cakes Aline, who spoke on preparation studio preparation and music distribution. Mr. Carlos Pasano John, who spoke on preparation of an artist and targeting the market. Mr. Stephen Huggins, who spoke on causes, purposes, and evolution of music. Mr. Hamlet, I heard you mention, and that's something that's very dear to me as a Calypsonian, that the roadmap must begin with us. Do you care to elaborate, please?
Sure. I started singing as well this year as a Calypsonian, but over the years I've been a writer for several Calypsonian, an arranger and a musician as well. And I even have my own recording studio. What I noticed even before I left St. Vincent, now I reside in New York. Even before I left St. Vincent, I noticed that most Calypsonian, they just depend on somebody else to do things for them. But they know what their problems are, the problems they face. So it's best if they start documenting those problems and join similar groups like the Calypso Tents, where they can discuss these problems and come up with solutions to these problems. After which they can take them to the government officials and sit down and discuss means and ways as to get them in the legislation of our country.
I have one more question for you before we move on. When we started, I spoke about the Dynamite Calypso tent, moving from the Dynamite Calypso tent, and then they are now the Dynamite Cultural Organization, because they have evolved over the years and moved into different aspects of things by getting involved in community work and stuff like that, right? Do you think that the other tents that are in St. Vincent need to follow the same trend? As a member of the tent, Dynamite Calypso.
Dynamite's Calypso tent, I must say, it's a very active tent in the sense that they have a program for the year. They have events planned throughout the year. And I think that's something that the other tents in St. Vincent and the Grenadines can learn from. Not just when Carnival come, you come together, sing 2 songs, and that's it. There must be activities where you generate funds that could run the organization. There might be cases where an artist might need, let's say, financial help. And if you have an organization with funds, some of that help can be provided. For example, I attended a workshop in Alabama this year representing SVG AMP, and some of that money for my attending the workshop came from Dynamite. So this is just to say what can be done if the tents in St. Vincent step up and become more organized. They can generate some funds, and it would require in some cases, or in all cases, dues. You pay a due membership fee each year, and you can bill on that membership fee instead of just keeping it in the bank. You can organize activities throughout the year to gain more money, as I mentioned in my discussion here, that instead of sitting on what you have, you can generate more funds on that, what you have in the bank.
Thanks very much, Hamlet. Causes, purpose, evolution, acceptance, and achievement, artist compensation, and royalties. In addition to the next generation, that's the topic, yesteryear, today, and the future. Mr. Huggins, I know that you're involved in a lot of being a lawyer, co-founder of Upstage Experience, so I know you know what it entails and what are the struggles that the artists, whether Calypsonian or Soca artists, go through over the years. Causes, purpose, and evolution are what you spoke on. Could you tie in that to tell us what you think are some of the causes, purpose, and evolution coming out of yesteryear and now?
Well, it's a difficult question in the sense that some of the causes that made Calypso come into being and to become what it had become, they're not now considered as important to people anymore. They don't see, for example, if you even go as far back as, say, the Black Stallion. The Black Stallion shot to prominence when he sang a calypso called Caribbean Unity. Somehow, we don't seem to feel that there is a need for that type of calypso anymore. We don't seem to feel that we need to preach the gospel of Caribbean unity. We don't seem to see where we need to talk about slavery. We don't need to talk about certain ills. I listened with great interest to Samantha, and I could see that as a young person, she does not have the same impetus that we had when we were, for example, when we came through the whole question of apartheid, in terms of what was happening in South Africa. Calypsos were being sung about apartheid and about everything that we considered to be important to us in those days. The young people of today, if you listen to Samantha's exhortations, she was basically saying, well, we just want to have a good time. She did mention that there were some songs that she liked that had messages, but generally, and I'm not looking at Samantha herself, I'm looking at the young people. So in terms of causes and purpose, we don't seem to have enough of the issues holding themselves dear to young people anymore. On the other side, we have social media. What the Calypsonian will say, social media says it right away. And we don't seem to need Calypso for those purposes anymore. And unfortunately, the persons who want to hear that type of Calypso are the older ones, the older people. And so they're the ones who, yes, I agree with you. If you're asking me that, they're the ones who have to realize that the messages are there still. For example, if you look at Lorna Fire Empress Ned this last carnival, she had a really great message in her winning Calypso. And that was about singing about the village raising a child. And that's important. But as to who gravitates towards Calypso, we need to start getting more young people back into it and trying to get them involved in what they want to sing about. I'm sorry, Mav, I'm not hearing you. I don't know if you were hearing me.
Yes, I was hearing you.
Okay, sorry.
So this next question is for Mr. Aline. What sort of contract documents does the studios in SVG provide to each soca each artist, whether Calypsonian or soca artist? Vibrating, are you still here with us? Well, I will come back to that question. Another question is, soca does not deal with social issues as Calypso does. Is there a plan in soca for social activism? Any of our panelists can answer if you wish.
I think I'll attempt this question. There is room for that in soca. The difference is that soca more tend to deal with tempo and a catch line or hook phrase. And so the content of which might be a long verse or too many words may not lend itself to the soca music. But there is room for that to happen.
Okay, I don't think that Skakes is still with us, so.
Yes, I'm with you.
Samantha, can you elaborate on that aspect as well?
Yes, you were mentioning.
Skakes, Samantha, I will come back to you.
Sure. So I had mentioned hard times. That's a prime example of what you're saying. Everything went up. It's a hard time. My pay doesn't increase, but I have to find a way. That's a prime example.
Thanks very much. Skakes, you're back with us. I was asking, what sort of contract documents does the studios in SVG provide for artists?
Some studios have a draft contract that is worked out between the artist and the studio owner. It's based on accepted norms within the musical industry or the music industry regionally and beyond. So there are contracts that we use to contract people who we think have potential. Most of the time is who we think have potential. Most of the time is like that.
Thank you very much. I know that Maxi, you can elaborate on this as well in terms of contracts.
Oh yeah, hi Marvel. Yeah, I think contract is a general principle that is not used a lot amongst our artists, etc. We tend to do, we still in this, in a lot of cases, in this word of mouth friendship kind of thing, because we still not recognizing that music is 85% business, and the rest of it, 15%, is really show. I mean, we had a perfect example that was on the radio trending not too long ago about a performer not being paid by a promoter. That was just a perfect example. In any arrangement where you are a performer working for a promoter or going into a studio, you must have some kind of written agreement that details how this thing is going to work out. Who's going to own the masters? Is this a work for hire? Do you just pay the studio engineer for doing the studio engineering work, but you own in the masters? All those things has to be worked out. If you're going to perform somewhere, you must have a contractual agreement for who you're working for that addresses issues of transportation, issues of dressing areas, and all the things that goes with a performance. We have to get to that point of doing those things. I managed an artist for many, many years, and every performance that we did, especially outside of the US and outside of St. Vincent, a contract had to be signed before the artist leaves these shows. Deposit has to be paid before the artist leaves these shows. And as the artist gets to the venue, the balance of that compensation has to be paid before he performs. Because this entertainment business has some shady characters. So it's important. And these are not, 10-page contracts. They're very simple contracts. Once they have in all the right details, you can find samples online. You can have them from other people who have been doing. You can copy. They're very simple. They just have to cover the essentials of the performance or the agreement, such as fees.
The web provides a wide knowledge on a lot of stuff, but persons just don't take the time out to do their investigation.
And some of us don't see the importance. We don't see the importance of it because, like I said, we're still struggling to get, especially the younger artists, to understand that this is a business. If they're going to perform and be a performer, or you're going to be a successful performer, you have to have people around you that knows and understanding that music business. The language in the music business is a particular type of language when you're writing a contract or when you are being contracted. Right. You have to understand the principles and what this means and what that means. Who owns what and who owns this? What's going to happen 10 years down the road? If the song become a phenomenal hit, how are you going to adjust the splits, etc., etc.? There's a lot of issues business-wise. And folks can take this. All this stuff is on the internet too, if they really want to learn it. That's the thing. And if they really want to listen to
that's
people.
The thing, because remember these days, there's only a few. And I guess maybe you could count them sometimes, because not most persons take music as a business and want to have it on a professional level. It's just for them to just have it as a hobby. So they won't take the time out to learn about it if they're not serious about it, right? Sam, this question is for you. Persons would like to hear what is your perspective on music streaming and how you think it would relate to the future of Calypso and Soca.
I personally think that CDs, they're getting to be a little bit outdated per se. Everything is on your phone. I personally have a subscription to Apple Music. It's just more convenient. I don't have to have a CD player or a record player to do anything. So I think it's just more of the convenience aspect of it. We don't want anything extra. Just have it on my phone for me.
If I may say a few words on this. Hello?
Sam, if you're finished, Hamlet, you can go ahead before I ask the next question.
Yes, I'm finished.
Okay. Hamlet, you can...
in today's world, most people don't want to go buy CDs or 45 or LP as we used to do back in the day. And so the best way is through social media, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. You can register with some company online where you have an account and they monitor your music online. Whenever somebody clicks on your song, you get some money. The problem with that is that these corporation gets most of your money. The Apple and the Spotify get most of it, but at least you get some money. So that might be the best way of going, unless we, the Calypsonian and the Soca artists, develop our own platform.
Marvel, if I could just jump in here a quick minute on this issue.
Maxie, 1 second before you do, right? Somebody asked, right? Since most streaming websites give literal pennies to artists for each stream, but this is their main way that they live by, how can we address something like that? So see if you can add to what Hamlet was saying and see if you can tie that in as well.
Well, digital streaming is a big part of how you collect monies from music. And a lot of times people from all over the world will buy music online. And if you set yourself up correctly as an artist, you can make some money. I'll use my personal example. I manage an artist and we have ourselves set up online. I see people buying his music from all over the globe. And that music comes directly to us. In some cases, it's difficult for the artists down here to do it from here because of the banking regulations, etc., etc. But if you have a proper management team and you're set up correctly as a business, you can get it done. Just have somebody in the States, a family member, a manager, or whatever, set it up using their accounts. Somebody you trust, of course, and you have your music streaming. You can do it through a company like CD Baby, and there's some others. You upload all your music on their platform, and they will do the work for you in terms of getting your music all over the globe. And once your music is sold at a certain level, they send you a check directly to your bank account. Last year, I came back with a couple $1,000 to the artists I managed just from that. You have to promote the artists and promote ways where people direct people to your platform so they can buy music. People in strange places you will not believe buy soca music. They might hear a song online and they like it, and they'll download a copy of a particular song or several songs. So that's a trending way of making money outside of performances, especially for soca where there's very little areas to make money, and the money itself is very small. Soca artists are paid let's just put it this way: soca and calypso music is not a big money generating genre of music. That's just the reality. Okay, we have to live with that reality, but find ways to be creative and make some extra money. And one of those ways is digital streaming platforms. We just have to explore it and figure out how to do it.
Well, that's a good thing, Maxie. And one of the things that we have to bear in mind, and what a lot of artists have not been leaning to, is the management aspect of it. We don't want to have a management team because there's a lot of things that you as the artist you can do for yourself. So you need a management team. And that's one of the things that Pulses needs to do. So this question is for Pisano. How do you factor in the streaming platform in your marketing and targeting strategy? Pisano?
You didn't know. Yeah, it's very difficult, but I got to do what I got to do if you want to be successful in this business. So I use TuneCo and DistroKid, and they distribute my music to Apple and Spotify. And also you got to learn how to use social media to use the platform to reach out to fans, be friend with other people, other groups. There's groups in St. Vincent, groups in Trinidad, groups in the Caribbean. Join those groups, and then you could place your music around so they could hear, and then you build your fan base. basically I use in Canada Vinci International Radio, which I did an interview on. I sent my music to him, and he got his base in Europe, which is a good thing because people in Europe now is tuning into Calypso and Soca, and that's the back way back into the US. So you use those bass, and that's a good thing for us. And a lot of the artists is not taking advantage of that. I don't know why, because he's on every Thursday, and all he plays is Vinci music. So the artists who want to get on thing, take note of that. That's how we do it.
Well, I guess they're not aware because some persons don't network a lot as well. So that's one thing that we
Follow
need to
Dynamite Calypso tent, and we have all the connections. So if you follow the tent, you could find out, and we will assess you in that regard.
Right. Thanks very much for those. So, Pisano, another question. Do you, apart from networking, do you have a management team, or that's just how you do your music?
I am having a problem with that because people now these days don't want to be managers because it's too much work. Everybody just want to, when you get big and you blow up and the big set of money coming in, everybody want to manage you because they're getting that big check. If you're starting out and you're not big yet, they're not interested in working with you. Everybody want to jump on the boat. So in the process, I'm struggling, but I'm working very hard to improve myself. By improving my material, I cannot be denied because I'm changing the ways of how we do soca, how we do calypso. For instance, they use used to be indie beat, right? Now it's Afrobeat. Now everybody's jumping on it. The boat rather. You know what I'm saying? The rappers, everybody's jumping on the Afrobeat. So the way I'm changing the soca, if you check my songs out on Apple and Spotify, you go and check my songs and you see all my rhythms, how I change the beats and everything. And that will help us a lot. We got to change the way how we do calypso and how we do soca. We got to evolve with the follow the algorithm, what's trending right now.
That's true. Thank you very much, Pisano. And just to let our listeners know, we have an extra 20 minutes in case you want to get your questions in. You can send them to calypsolovesvg@gmail.com. That's calypsolovesvg@gmail.com. If you still need to get your questions in, you can do that. We have an extra 20 minutes going over. Mr. Venner, this question is for you. How can the business side of music be included in the school's curriculum in SVG? What advice can you give on that?
Well, we'll have to work through the Ministry of Education, the music department, when they have workshops with teachers to instruct the teachers what should be done. For example, you have a junior calypso for the last couple of years. I know one or two teachers who were encouraged to join ECHO, right? And so they write the songs to the children and so on, so they copyright them. But also I'm hoping that in the school's music program, especially at certain schools where the music program is highly developed, they could instruct the children about the copyright and things like that. They need to do that early. Because a lot of the youngsters coming into the soca these days know next to nothing about the music business. And so they're being taken advantage of. They're just there for the good times. Everybody see you and hear your song. but the business aspect is neglected. So we need to get it into the school system through the music teachers and program. Yeah. That's my take. And yeah,
I'm hearing you, Mr. Venner. I was saying, right,
yeah.
that apart from going through the Ministry of Education to have music more included in their school's curriculum, someone else asked what more you think could be done to help the young people to get more involved in Calypso.
Well, we have the Junior Calypso every year, and there's a symposium. It is held in January. It was held already this year. And I spoke at that to relationship between the arranger and the teacher, the composer, and gave them certain pointers that must be done. Now, every year, you have new students coming in, and you have some who were there for 2 years, 3 years before. And I noticed over the years that I was dealing with the Junior Calypso, the students might have come in at a low end, and before they went out of school, primary school, and even in the secondary school, they would develop a lot in terms of singing in key and things like that. Shana, like Mackenzie is a good example of that. She started in primary, went into secondary, went on to senior, then ended up in Soca and back in Calypso. So she's a good example. Also, Scorpion came through the same thing, the school program, and shown a lot of improvement.
All very good examples, Mr. Venner. And one of the panelists said before, right? We have persons who we endorse every year as cultural ambassadors. And somebody on the panel asks, what are these cultural ambassadors doing to help to enhance the music or the culture of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Apart from going to different places, what do they do on the local scene to help, especially the youths, them coming up in the music business?
That doesn't seem to be well organized locally, and they should be the ones pushing that here at home. Yeah. They should be trying to reach out to youngsters when we have Junior Calypso rehearsals and symposia and so on, to come and speak to them and give them incentive. But we don't see that now. They need to get into that.
And if we're moving from yesteryear, and we're making a comparison yesteryear, today, and the future. When I read some of the bios, especially the bio for Mr. Huggins, Mr. Huggins, a lawyer, co-founder of the Upstage Tent, assistant manager of the Onto Calypso Tent. All of our panelists have a very, very wide background, because you have all evolved in one way or the other. So, it will be nice, I think, at a later date, because I know that you guys try to cram all your information in the 6 minutes. And, you needed a little bit more time, but you still managed to get the message across on the topic that you had to speak about. So the last question I asked in relation to the cultural ambassadors, Mr. Huggins, what's your take on that?
You have a very strong point there. I think we, as people who you just mentioned as being on the panel and having a vast experience behind us, should be reaching out more to people like the cultural ambassadors and the Ministry of Culture and the tourism sector. Because, for example, just recently I was in conversation with a gentleman who lives in Miami, in Florida. I'm not sure where. And he is indicating to me that he was a musician. He is a musician. He is currently involved in a little project that I am trying to get him to do, which is to work on a song that is a popular song of the past in St. Vincent, that we're trying to get him to redo the song. And in talking to him, he is willing to come down to do workshops for young musicians and distribute musical instruments and have panel discussions and have symposia and that sort of thing. He's willing to come. And we just need to get these people harnessed that they can come and make this contribution, because out of that, I can see maybe 2 or 3 bands either becoming better or 2 or 3 bands being started in St. Vincent. And heaven knows where those bands will go, because we've seen in recent times a sort of resurgence in musical bands, and young people are coming back into it. And those are the areas that I want to see people getting back into. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that we need to get everybody back on board, including the ambassadors.
Okay, so another question, and I'm still gonna direct this one to you. You said that the person is interested in coming down to do workshops. So a question was asked, how do you think we can motivate the government to do more, to help more?
To be honest, I think contact with persons, like personal contact. You have to go to the right people and reach out to them and basically touch a nerve, maybe talk to them in a way that they can see where you're going and where you want to go and decide to help you. Pull some strings, get things done. Because when he told me about this situation, I told him, well, yes, I'm willing to go and talk to hopefully the right people. But we need, as somebody pointed out earlier, we need that school of music. We need a cultural performance center. We need a lot of stuff. And we need to get the right people involved in getting it.
Funny you should mention the right people, because we're back to the aspect of the ambassadors, and the Dynamite's 10th of New York has changed their name to Dynamite's Cultural Organization. So I think they could start from there and come down the chain. What do you think about that?
Well, I was going to say as well, yes, but all of the Calypso tents get very stagnant once Carnival is done. In fact, the tent that I was associated with, I'm going to be honest and say, they too seem to be becoming stagnant, because I'm no longer associated with the tent. So I don't know what's happening inside. But I can say that personal contact should be made. And in fact, when you give somebody ambassadorship, it should be on conditions. It should be on conditions that you're expected to do this and you're expected to do that. Maybe it can't be a law, obviously, but it should be that you're given this on the condition that this is expected of you. These will be your obligations.
Quite agreed. Quite agreed. Vibrating Skakes. If you're making a comparison to back when you started in this industry, how has it changed since you started, and has it been better?
Ebb and flow. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. When I came into the art form in 1975, you had 2 Calypso tents. And stalwarts at that time was Lord Hawk and Summers and among them. What we did, we never put them down, because Sheller, Hawk, and all these guys were the forerunner to Calypso tents. Calypso tents was a new thing in St. Vincent, about 10 years old by 1975. So about 10 years old, it's in the 60s, somewhere there. So we never put down the older guys. What we use is our pen and talent to try to knock them out the top. We use our pen and talent to knock them out there, and some of us were successful, like the manage, myself, and quite a few other guys who came into the art form. When CP came, CP came there to try and knock people like me and Professor out of the way. And he did a good job. He succeeded. I find there's an attitude towards older Calypsonians who have a lot of experience and knowledge to pass on. And some people are trying to sideline you, to disrespect you, and they try to sideline you, and then they want you to get out of the way because allow the young people to get in. Now here's something. These guys went to school, learned to write, learned to sing, learned to perform. That's the name of the game. And when you come up with something great, give you your reward and praise you. Now, we saying a lot of young people, I judged for the Junior Calypso last year. And we have a lot of promise in the youngsters who sang last year. They were very good. They were motivated. I was motivated a lot. By you, some of them don't write their own songs. But at the same time, I was inspired that there's something good happening for Calypso. And I am a guy who always tries to help younger guys wherever. If they come to the band room and we're practicing and something wrong with the music, I correct it. Right? I don't say leave it like that so that I could be a winner over them. No way. I correct it because we want to have a high standard in what we are producing. Calypso and Calypso Tent is our Broadway. In New York, if you go to Broadway, it's sing and talk and perform and so on. We have seen something like Broadway in what Montano did for the finals in Trinidad. I was seeing like a live Broadway show in Montano's performance. And when you look at the storyline of what he was singing, plus the performance, in my opinion, he won. Some people have not other opinion saying, well, Montano and them have something already. Or the question, artists not who have something already. Artists who could produce and continue to produce to make it palatable for your audience and your people. And when it comes to Calypso Tents now, I think there is where you have to try to get a package and try to repackage and sell, right? It's not to, oh, he was singing a long time, get you out the way. There's a lot of nonsense people entertain, right? So if a guy could still write a good song, get out of the way, come on, right? But I'm not in the way now because I stopped singing about 5 years now. And I have my reasons. But I'm just saying, for the taking, my opinion about the art form is that it could only improve when people start respecting each other and respecting the art form and stop studying who have this or who get this. Not get, nothing is there to give you. You got to work like how I fight with Hawk and them and Toiler and all these guys. And other guys do not be alone manage, you name it. We came in as a new cadre and we fight our way to the top and we produce songs and the whole town was singing it. Get the song that people singing in town and they'll remember you and they want to be part of you. And we could get something better out of what's happening.
All right, thanks very much, Skik. So we're going to take one more question and we're going to get ready to wrap up. So someone asked, every year we have a lot of amazing calypsos, kaisos, and I mean, we have amazing soca's as well. And then we always hear CDC saying that it don't make enough money. How is it that we don't make a compilation and, as Skik said, and package this as an export product so that we can make some money? Anybody, any panelists could answer that question.
It's difficult to get cooperation like that between tents. I know that over the years, it has been done inside each particular tent. I know Graduates did it before, Upstage did it not too long ago. I should say in the early years of Upstage, maybe after about 5 years of Upstage, that should be about 2010 or so. But I haven't seen it happening recently. And the question then would be, I think, over to people like Franklin Edwards and Persano, because they might know better how to generate the income from that. Because it's all well and good to record it. If it's not going to generate income, then I guess with the live streaming and all of that, I don't think that was ever done because it wasn't a thing to be done in those days when the tents were organizing to have compilations done.
If I could chime in here.
You can go ahead. It will be the last
Yes,
comment, and then we'll wrap up.
that's something that Dynamite's actually discuss and will be doing as of this year, whereby instead of letting our music just disappear, each year we upload them to through the same process where you could get them on Spotify and YouTube or Apple Music, and it would be there for as long as we keep the account. So I'm just hoping that the tents in St. Vincent could follow the same pattern so that our resources and creativity won't go to waste.
Also,
could I just before sorry, Posano, shouldn't that then be a combination of all the tents getting together and producing all the music certainly from the calypso side of it? And because I know that it doesn't work as well when you try to combine calypso and soca together, but certainly if you could get all the calypsonians from every tent to put a Vincentian package on one of your streaming platforms, that might work. I'm not sure because I'm talking about what I heard earlier coming out from some of the panelists. So once that is possible, then a cooperative between all of the tents for 2024 should be arranged.
In that event, they would need somebody that would monitor the finances of all the tents.
Okay.
That might be a bigger challenge, unless.
Yeah.
But collaboration is always the best way of promoting our culture. If we could collaborate, whether it's with that person in Florida to have whatever it is, that's the best way of getting Vincentian music to the rest of the world.
Okay. I see where the little obstacles might come up.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone for all of your ideas, all of your answers to the questions, your presentations on Calypso, Soca, Yesteryear, Today, and the Future, Causes, Purpose, Evolution, Acceptance, and Achievement, Artist Compensation and Royalties, in addition to the Next Generation Perspective. Samantha Carr, Carlos Paso, John, Kenneth Vibrating Skis, Aline, Auric Hamlet, Franklin Edwards, Stephen Huggins, and Mr. Geoff Venner. I am hoping that we'll be able to continue this discussion at a later date, but that's all the time we have for tonight. I'm now going to invite Mr. Glenroy Phillips, the PRO of Dynamite Cultural Organization of New York, to do the vote of thanks.
All right, good night. That was just a wonderful discussion and one of many to come. First, I would like to thank IKTV, Channel 112, and Boom Radio for partnering with Dynamite Cultural Organization for this event. We'd like to really thank three people within from IKTV. Station Manager Mario Veleno, Mr. Namni Sami, and Kyle Niles, technician, for their support and hard work during this whole process. We'd like to thank our sponsors, AI Real Estate, Mr. Simford Warren, Standard Shippers, Standard Caribbean Shippers, Friends of Sign Hill. We'd like to also thank Ms. Francesca Sam of Shate Production for the invocation. Also, we'd like to thank Love Bay Radio, Toronto, and Vince Internet Radio in Ottawa for carrying this program live and getting way to a wider market. Special thanks to the panelists, Ms. Samantha Carr, Mr. Stephen, my Chancellor Huggins, Kenneth Vibrating Skate Aline, Mr. Franklin Maxie Edwards, Mr. Jeff Benner, Mr. Carlos Posano John, Mr. Ulrich Hamlet, and then also our moderator, Mistress Marvel O'Brien Morgan. For doing this. We'd like to thank the general public for tuning in and being a part of this event. This is the second year we're doing this, and it's only getting better and better. Special thanks to our 10th leader, Mr. Carlos Rejector Providence, and his deputy, Mr. Peter Bork, for this tremendous work in this event. Guys, job well done. So on behalf of the Dynamite Cultural Organization, thanks to everyone and have a good night. And sometime next year, God's willing, we'll be back at this. Good night.
Good night and thanks.
Good night. Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, and thanks for having us.
Yes, it was Jaja's plan to put in every man the qualities that will ensure success. And if you believe anything you will achieve, you will reach your full potential, be your very best. Regardless the way you come from, once you have the ambition, the sky is the limit. Once you ain't quit, you can be anything you want to be. Just stay away from negativity. Pursue the goals you set tenaciously. Don't let failure define your destiny. Know that believing in yourself increases the possibility and makes it easier to be what you want.